have such sights to show you.
We're Poppin the Scary horror podcast. I'm your host, Coale, and with me as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing?
Oh, yeah.
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 How you been spending your nights lately? All 5 of them.
Well, needless to say, I make sure to preserve the power by 6 a.m.
Guffaw. Sensible chuckle.
Yeah, that's some video game humor right there, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we are outside the movie theater getting ready to watch Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and you're right, it is 2. So Aaron, just for a quick recap of the audience, from what I remember of your thoughts of the first one, you thought, as a film, it was kind of weak, but it was fun to watch and everything, so that kind of compensated for the lack of critical merit there was.
Yeah, I put it in the same category as like the Super Mario movie or like the Minecraft movie or something. Like, it's a fun adaptation of a franchise that we all enjoy, but it's not necessarily gonna take home any Golden Globes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I pretty much felt the exact same way. We were both pretty much like right smack dab exactly on the same point in that regard. And with the sequel coming out, what are your hopes about it being the same? Are you hoping more critical acclaim or more just a good fun time?
Yeah, I'm hoping Chica Vores somebody. That's about it.
I'm cutting it off right here.
I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. It'll probably, honestly, be on par with the first movie, maybe a little worse, because it's a sequel, it's a squeakquel, But, there'll be some laughs, there'll be some cheesy pizza, there'll be some jump scares, and that's all I'm really hoping for. My bar is low for this one. I just hope it's a good time.
Me too, buddy. Me too, but not that kind of a good time.
Okay.
Just a good time. So we'll be back with y'all whenever we get back from the movies.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Pop.
We got those crates in, they're covered in glue. You gotta open them up with some super glue. You gotta find a way inside of that crate and pick up every hat till you wanna remake. You're gonna craft them. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna craft them into two refined for that hat. Gonna give it to you. Gonna come around to school you. Got the crates, we got the crates. Let's the crates of the great.
And we are back from watching Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
Five Nights at Fredwards, the second.
All right, yeah. Frederico's, as I once heard from you.
Yes.
So
Cinco Noches de Fredericos.
Muy bien. So Aaron, you talked about your expectations going in.
Yeah.
How are you feeling out on the other side?
Chico almost vored someone.
I know. That's why I was like, no,
like,
don't tell me. No, don't tell me.
I thought for a second I had the power to predict the future.
Yeah, just
Foresight. What's that? Foresight. Sorry, I got Fortnite pilled in my head when I tried to say the word foresight.
Yeah, that's...
Foresight at Freddy's. But I didn't. No Chica Vor. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
But besides that, how's the rest?
Yeah, it was about what I expected. I'll have to see. Obviously we'll dive into some of the details in spoiler territory. I'd say overall, fun romp. Good. I like seeing the toy versions of the animatronics. I like seeing the original Five Nights at Freddy's restaurant, and the ending kind of blew.
Yeah,
and that's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Just the characters' motivations didn't make any sense to me towards the end.
It's weird, because I definitely felt like, going into this film, I wouldn't say my expectations were like set high, because it's like, I feel like that's highly unfair for it and everything, just given the general circumstance of what they're working with. But I was kind of curious about if they would take anything from the first film and apply it to the second one to try to heighten it. And I feel like they did heighten some certain aspects, but they also took away from certain aspects, I felt like. So it was kind of like a balancing act. Like they only have so many marbles to distribute, and they're putting more marbles in one area more so than another this time round, as opposed to previous, which was a little bit more even keel in my mind. But yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I left there just being like, yep, I feel validated. You know, not to spoil too much about my feelings, but it was just like, yep, all right. You know, kind of like just big, solid, you know, mark and everything. But there is a lot of aspects that I was genuinely like, whenever it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's as a franchise, I like it. I'd be lying if I said it's my number one favorite hyperfixation, but I like it. And being that as in May, there were some moments where I'm like, oh man, this is pretty sweet. And I will say this, one thing, without going too much into spoilery, the audience like applauded, and mind you, we didn't see this opening night or anything. It's like a couple of days after it came out, like on a Sunday. And so like hearing an audience applaud, I think the last time I heard an audience applaud was the last Five Nights at Freddy's.
That's what being in an audience full of children will do to you. They have a low bar.
There were a lot of 12-year-olds.
I think I heard a clap at like the Super Mario Brothers movie too, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, like
nobody landed a plane. We don't need to clap.
Oh my gosh. Man, so man, there's surprisingly a lot I can say about this film, which is good. Yeah. It's good. What I guess we'll just start by talking about the plot. So, mind you, probably to the surprise of nobody, we're going to be spoiling the first Five Nights at Freddy's film. Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, sorry, but we need to kind of talk about it.
Yeah, it kind of happens. Yeah. The events are directly correlate to exactly what happens at the end of that movie. So
there's your heads up. So pretty much following the plot of the first one, in the second one, we're kind of like after a short period of time after the events, and basically Mike and his sister Abby are trying to reel in from the events that occurred and everything, especially with Abby still feeling a little bit like an outcast whenever it comes to trying to interact with other people. Not only that, but Vanessa, who they befriended in the first film, is also reeling from significant trauma.
Because her dad stabbed her. That's a spoiler.
Yeah, definitely some family issues, to say the least there. But pretty much it picks up the events there. But the film does open with a flashback kind of showing that happened in the universe, which kind of helps set up the premise on what the main central focus will be on.
It sets up kind of the main villain.
And basically at that point, it's them trying to deal with what's going on while also not realizing that something is brewing.
Wow.
And something that was not mentioned before that is now being mentioned again.
Once again mentioned.
Yes,
There's a lot of secrets that become unveiled.
Yeah.
In this movie that were not mentioned in the first movie. So you just didn't have room for it, I guess.
Yeah, and I'd say plot-wise, overall, sure. Yep. I mean,
they needed to get him back into a Freddy's, and if I had to like remind myself of the plot of the first movie, but I'm pretty sure at the end of the first movie they were like, yeah, we're not going back to this place.
Yeah.
And so they had to figure out a way to get him back in the old abandoned Freddy's, and they kind of introduced a new abandoned Freddy.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Have you checked up on your FNAF lore and everything?
No, you're gonna have to fill in some blanks.
Because
I played, just a reminder for the audience, I played like 30 minutes of the first Five Nights at Freddy's, like when it was the hotness, over a decade ago, and like I'm not that caught up. I've gotten some cultural references here and there, but yeah, I I was about to give an anecdote as to how clueless I am, but I realized it would have spoiled something, so I'm not. But
Man, restraint.
Yeah, I gotta filter sometimes. But yeah, no, I'm not super familiar, so excuse me if I misname a character or something. That's not Golden Freddy. That's a different Fredward.
But I feel like, to be fair, for this interview, it kind of works better to have someone that's not as familiar with the lore as I am, because, like I said, even if it's not like a hyperfixation, I find it curious enough, because
I think it's
already
a cool universe.
Yes, it really is.
I just haven't dove in. That's one of the big credits I'm going to give this movie. Is I think it's a really good setting, and like the characters and everything are great for a spooky sort of movie.
Oh my gosh, I would agree. But yeah, plot wise, it does a good job of introducing of kind of what the second game did, because as you can imagine, the original Freddy's they end up going to is the setting for the second game. And you know, it's revealed kind of again, because if you know Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay, especially the early ones, literally it's just you in the room kind of looking back and forth
through security cameras,
doing that. And I feel like they do a good job of kind of introducing lore that was introduced up to this point, being like, oh, there's this original place and here's what happened, and it's a little bit different because it was the original location, not a franchised location that kind of spread out from what you saw. And knowing the events of the game, like, you could obviously tell Scott Cawthon definitely did a good job of integrating kind of the appropriate lore in there. So for someone being casual fan, it was very gratifying to feel like they're doing a very good job of trying to respect the source material.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so in that aspect, whenever it comes to lore, and maybe like I don't know all about the novelizations or the books they wrote or anything else of the sort, but from a base perspective of what I understood, I felt like in universe wise, I guess it's more so the universe that I'm respecting a little bit more, but at least the story kind of works. There's definitely some aspects that I'm like, you were onto something there. I wanted a little bit more work with it, but then they also have some, if I'm being quite honest, some awful plot devices.
Oh,
and
they have some. They're building the railroads, man. They railroaded some shit in super.
Oh
hard.
my gosh!
This has to happen, so this character's just gonna feel really this way for no fucking reason, or like now suddenly they're gonna be in this location.
Yeah, which comes at the sacrifice of their character. And mind you, these characters that we were introduced to, you know, the main three, they weren't that deep of characters, but you had just enough there. And if anything, I do find it kind of interesting that in the first film, I do feel like a lot of focus was put on the character Mike, played by Josh Hutcherson in the first film. But he kind of takes
because he doesn't get a lot of development in this movie.
And then it's more about Vanessa more so in this film. So I felt like that's good. But unfortunately, with the trajectory of the plot and the way it went, it led to some assassination of characterization, I feel like, where I'm kind of like, this just feels not good.
Yeah, because he was kind of still the main character of this movie, but then suddenly is like in the back seat the entire time.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of, I don't know. So there's some things like, if it wasn't for the fact of me kind of like being so invested in the universe, I feel like if it was only up to the story to hook me in, it would have a hard time grabbing my attention. But it's just because of the universe they are in, and that it is a well-crafted universe and ideas and lore shoved in, that I feel like I'm able to still like watch the movie and still be invested. So that's honestly one of the biggest kudos I could
even as a casual fan, I would 100% agree with that, because even though I don't know all the references they're making or anything like that, or exactly who every character is, the environments that they were in, the themes, the spooky stuff, the creepy characters, you know, that was what was getting me glued to the screen. And then the plot was like, all right, just a vehicle to get there, because the plot was probably the weakest part of it. Plotting some characters,
yeah, I would agree. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and talk about the characters. Let's talk about Josh Hutcherson playing Mike.
Mike.
again, it's difficult, right? Because
Mhm.
he is kind of taking more of a back seat whenever it
Yeah.
comes to the plot trajectory.
Because in
But
the first movie, like, it was pretty, like, clear who he was and what his character's motivation was. He has to take care of his younger sister. He's kind of playing the role of being the parent, and he has to work this security job to, fucking make ends meet, even though it's not really what he wants to be doing with his life. But, like, those, you can see his motivations. This movie is, like, I can't even tell if he's employed at all. Like,
yeah, they
what does
technically
he
don't
do?
talk about his job at all.
His role is to help develop primarily Vanessa and Abby in this movie, and he just feels like he's running around the whole time.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I just feel like, and again, this doesn't come in part of Josh Hutcherson's performance. In
No.
fact, I felt like there was some moments, and I can't really say it was the writing per se, but there were some certain opportunities in the script that I think Josh was able to elevate with his performance. But other times it's literally him just kind of spouting stuff. But in all honesty,
Yeah.
I didn't hate his character. I liked him just fine. There's just not a lot to it.
Yeah, I think they kind of coast on and Mike from the first movie, which is not like a terrible thing to do for a sequel, but it's like, yeah, it comes at the expense of like the main character being some rememberable character. I don't think I'm going to remember his performance for very long after.
No, and the one thing I will say that while there is some glimmer moments, like there's one scene in particular where I was like, or actually, you know what, there's probably another one I'd argue, but beside the point, there's like a handful of moments where I'm like, that was a good performance. I like that. I like what you did. And then there's other times where I'm like, oh my goodness, they are just trying so hard to make this happen, and therefore they have to make characters do uncharacteristic things to make that happen.
There's a
and
couple
I'm like,
times I can think of where I could tell they just were like, I have to do this. Like, you're reading the script and it's a little bit of a whiplash, and he's like, well, I'll give it my best. And they give it his best, but it doesn't sell it as a character, like, regardless of how well it was acted. It's just like, I don't buy that your character is feeling this way. Like, it's like it's like a weird. I don't see the motivation that leads up to this. But
yeah, me neither, dude. Me neither.
And they wrote it in. Don't. I'm not even trying to say it's a plot hole, because they wrote in specifically like, this is why I feel this way. But it's just like, bro, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that's.
But we'll
bro, that's kind of how I feel
dive
too,
into
man.
those details and spoilers.
Yes, exactly. So, that's kind of all we could say about his character. The next character we could talk about is Piper Rubio playing as Abby, and I feel like for the most part, again, she does a perfectly fine job. Just
I like Abby.
Yeah, you know, she's
a
sweet.
kid.
You sympathize with her missing her friends from the first film, but at the same point, it's one of those things that there's development, right? Like, not all the kids hate her like they do in the first one. It feels like there's some kids are like, oh, you're weird, but the other ones are like, no, you rock. You're awesome. I like your weirdness. And I like that, and I believed her performance, you know, that she would be longing for the friends and would do the things she did, basically. And so I feel like whenever it comes to her, I feel like, yeah, that's a good, passable, solid performance. Like, no notes, no nothing. I can't really say there was any scenes where I was like, wow, that's like so gripping, but she just does just fine.
Yeah.
So
honestly, there's quite a few, and I know we're not gonna get to them. There's quite a few child actors as, like, you know, little her friends or background actors or whatever. I feel like all of them did a pretty good job. Yeah.
Really, they did. Like, in all honesty, all the kid actors and even teenage actors, for the most part, were good. It was just like, okay. Yeah, well, not any stilted performances, nothing groundbreaking, but just enough. It's just enough, hits the notes, and I'm like, okay, cool.
For child actors in a Five Nights at Freddy's sequel movie, I mean, yeah, they did good.
Yeah. One person I think is very interesting, as I've kind of alluded to in the intro, is Elizabeth Lail playing Vanessa. Now, I like a lot of what they were trying to do with Vanessa's character and sort of her trauma and coping with it and trying to sort through it and everything else. And towards the end of the film, I felt like it succeeded, I guess, but it could have been a lot better in my eyes. Like, there's definitely like, I like this idea going forward. I like this whole thing, which again, her character is in the lore. And obviously won't spoil too much about some of the Easter eggs that are thrown in and everything. But she's a bigger character than like Mike and Abby is. In retrospect, because she's connected to, you know, William Afton, since that's her dad, and she's actually mentioned in the lore and has a place and everything. So I like that they decided, like, hey, you know, let's let Mike take a backseat this time, since he was kind of the main vehicle, seeing the dreams of the children and everything. And let's focus on Vanessa's aspect and focus on that, because I do feel like on the grander scheme, like, I can see the blueprint. I could see what they were wanting to do with the character, and they're like, we want her to be here, but by the end of the film, we want her to be here. And I feel like the dots connect, but there is some loopy ass turns. It is inefficient. I feel like it could have been a lot tighter, a lot better, a lot deeper, a lot more interesting. But there's still enough for me to kind of get the gist of what they were trying to go for.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's definitely, you could tell that they needed the character to, you know, arrive at this, and this point, and then the lines that they drew in between to get there were maybe a little haphazard. But
yeah,
I do think this plot in general relies really heavily on coincidence, which is not the sign of a well-written script. Like, and these two people happen to be in the same place, and this, you know, things like that, or, you know, which, you know, some of it is unavoidable, and it's not like, you know, all horror movies we watch have a great track record of such a thing. But I think this movie was particularly egregious, where it was like, there were several times where I was like, oh, okay, that just happened. This just happens.
There was just a lot of things where I'm just like, I don't know. I like it on the grand scheme of things. I felt like it could have used more fine tuning, and they could have divided times to do things differently, because I didn't feel like there was too much lollygagging plot wise or whatever, where I'm like, you could cut it out, but there's definitely, you could do nip and tucks kind of, and then kind of harvest some stuff, so that way you could have gotten an extra scene. But be it as it may, I feel like her performance overall was perfectly fine. It just, again, as you can imagine, a lot of the conflicts that Josh has, or issues I have with his character, are also in conjunction with her character, where I'm like, I don't like the way this was written. So
because they do definitely explore both of those characters' relationships with each other in this movie. It's a pretty large focus, but I don't love the decisions they made with those characters, or at least the way they presented them.
And really surprisingly, they're kind of the main three actors, but there is, I would say there is a lot of like noteworthy mentions that should be mentioned cast-wise, even if it's like a bit, throw out like a, oh, hey, neat thing. One of the ones that I think it is important to kind of discuss, and obviously I won't get too spoilery about this, is talking about Matthew Lillard, who plays William Afton in the film. Now, he was one of my favorite aspects of the first film, and what I felt like elevated it a lot, because his performance was so good. Like, even whenever he was like, even before you knew he, yes, exactly, as the job counselor, like that beginning part, and then once it's revealed to be William Afton, like that was there. I mean, in my head, still years ago watching it, it's like, I always come back. You know, that was like, wow, that went hard. That went hard as all get out. And I was kind of, that was one of the things I was looking forward to in this film. But as it is, because, you know, he gets killed at the end of the first film. And even though I knew he was going to be in this film, I was expecting more from him, but he literally was not in the film quite as much as I thought.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought, especially whenever they started with a scene like from 1980 or whatever. I was like, oh, is there going to be young Matthew Lillard?
Yes,
but no, you just don't get a whole lot of screen time with him.
No, and I don't feel like that should. It doesn't make it a critique like, oh, you should have included him more, because I feel like with the story that's being told, realistically, especially with him being dead, he can't be in it
But
that
he is
much.
a fan favorite, so of course you want to see him.
So it's always the trade-off. I will say his inclusion, whenever they did include him, I was like, I like this. I don't know what it is. I did not like his performance as much. And I don't know if it's just, I don't know what it is. Something was off. I felt like it should have been a lot more powerful and terrifying. I liked, again, that whole set piece that I'm talking about, Aaron. I felt like that was a good idea that was sloppily executed.
Yeah, that's one of those things that it was a very artistic idea, and I know we're being a little vague about it because it's spoilers, but it was a very artistic idea that I felt like was not in a super artistic movie, so it sort of lost a little bit of luster that it might have otherwise had. And, you know, whenever you see somebody's performance and that kind of thing, it's a little experimental. I like that they went for it, but yeah, I would agree. It fell a little flat for me, too.
I felt like, I don't know, because I felt like, I don't know, that whole section there, maybe like there should have been a couple of more takes with him, because the takes that he had in the first film, like, genuinely were like good, like no notes, perfect across the board, A++ sort of situation. But in this film, I felt like you could have done better. I know you have it in you, Matthew. Yeah, but mind you as it may, it's still always fun to see him. But that's my biggest gripe about his performance in this film, is I felt like he could have done another take. Like, I know he had it in him. It's somewhere in you, Matthew. I believe in you. Not that you need my vote of confidence, but I believe in you. But yeah, and we won't spoil too much. One credit I was surprised to see, which is like kind of frontlined, is Wayne Knight, who plays Mr. Berg, aka Abby's science teacher. And I hate this characterization so much that it also, like, I can't help but be like, this is just so stupid and funny. Like, it's like realistically goes against everything, because this teacher
is the worst.
The worst. They literally, every moment with him, they try to make you understand that he is absolute garbage. Yeah. Absolute garbage.
He's just a big old bully.
And, you know, like, it doesn't bother me more so, where it's like, oh, I want something more believable, nuanced. It's just, it just kind of cracks me up that they went so hard on making this individual antagonistic, kind of like the stepmom from the first film, where they're going so hard into making one individual absolutely egregious.
Just humorously evil towards children.
Yeah, I know, seriously. And like, really, it's not even a criticism, but it's just more of a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too hard to dissect why horror movies can do that sometimes, to present a character as so bad so that maybe they're in a scene later where you don't feel as bad for him, you know? But boy howdy, Mr. Berg. I will say he plays a great character to hate.
Oh yeah,
he's a great actor to play a character that you hate.
Wayne Knight's terrific. He is a magnificent actor, and I'm happy to see him. But in this role that was written for him, I'm just like, wow, they just really were trying to make
juiced
him.
It up.
Yeah, they juiced it up and everything.
Yeah. I also thought it was fun. I mean, I kind of like it. It's a weird universe that the FNAF lore is, because we're in like the early 2000s, right? They don't have smartphones yet.
Yeah.
But they have these like super advanced robotics classes that he's like in charge of. And all this crazy robotics technology. So I do kind of love just the universe it exists in, where like a lot of this tech could be made today, but it couldn't be made in the time period that it's actually taking place in. But anyway, Wayne Knight as the robotics teacher was cool. It's just a funny robotics class. I was like, God damn, they're like making
I was surprised
AI
too.
robots.
I was like, good lord, which I understand why they do. And like, I knew immediately as soon as it pops up, I'm like, geez, I wonder if this is going to have any place in the plot. But overall, like, I think it's a fine but awkward but funny inclusion, I would say, and just happy to see Wayne Knight perform. He's a great actor. Like him. One performance that also was very funny to me was Freddie Carter's performance as Michael, the security guard of the original Freddy's location. This dude is, like, literally has some Renfield energy about him. Just like, he's just already creepy as is whenever he lets the ghoul patrol or whatever it's called, like the supernatural hunters into the building. Like, you're just expected to be like, welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, you know.
Lightning cracks behind him.
Yes, like that sort of lurch-looking mofo here, gaunt and everything. But also, I couldn't help but just like his performance. Like, they pretty much go all in and like, yeah, this dude's weird.
Yes, they definitely lean into that, and I think that was the right choice. They did a good casting for him.
That was very good casting, and I was all for that. It's so difficult trying to mention like all of the credits, because you could mention like Ghoul Patrol, which I can only guess their names are Lisa, Rob, and Alex, because I don't know who the hell else they are. Which they were fine, minus Alex, the camera guy. That was about the weakest performance. Where he's like, "Oh, bro, look at this, water."
All right, man,
and I'm just like, okay, this is like stereotypical bad acting in a horror film. Always got to have one of those. So
that was a cool inclusion, that little crew. And then I also like the what's his name, Max's best friend or whatever. What's his name?
Trying to see. Oh, yes, I know who you're talking about.
He appears a few times in the movie. The guy that's like painting with him and asks him about Vanessa.
Yes, I'm trying to see who the hell it is. Is it this guy here, Jeremiah?
Maybe. I mean, that looks like him, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Jeremiah.
Yes, who is played by Theodis Crane. I thought he was funny. They gave him nothing.
No, yeah, he really didn't have a lot.
Absolutely nothing to work with. He literally serves as just like, hey, I'm your friend. Well, see ya.
Yeah, and then later you're like, remember me?
Yes, remember me, right? I'm a friend. I'm Mike's friend. That was definitely a wild thing where I was like, man, I thought there was going to be a bigger role for him, but it is what it is. But
there's a
good
lot of
stuff
there.
Like
that are just like even like the friend that Abby makes is like, this is gonna be a role that's important, and then he's just like, no, then he just drops off.
Yes, literally nothing there. Which is unfortunate. There are two performances that I do think are worth highlighting. One of them is Charlotte, played by Audrey Lynn Marie, who is seen in the flashback of the original Freddy's, and I liked what her character served as, and I felt like the performance was overall well done. In all honesty, I will say the opening scene before the title sequence was done pretty well, minus a few things which we'll talk about in spoilers that I'm like, okay, this is preposterous. Absolutely preposterous with some of the stuff, but that's a few stuff sprinkled in. But I felt like her performance overall, and since she is prominent throughout the whole film, just here and there, I felt like she did perfectly fine. Definitely good voice. So it's just good stuff there. One final credit I will mention is the fact that this actually only happened because of Matthew Lillard, and that's the inclusion of Skeet Ulrich, who plays Henry Emily in the film. And basically, I don't know if you know the story of how he got cast, but basically, I guess Scott Cawthon was trying to look to see who to play Henry, and was talking to Matthew Lillard about it, like, hey, do you have any like recommendations? And Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich knew each other in Scream. And so they've been to a lot of fan conventions, and Matthew kind of was wanting to find someone for the Five Nights at Freddy's fandom that would be good. That's okay with a big fandom coming up, and he's very welcoming. And Skeet has been known to be super duper friendly, and he's like, I got the guy. And they included him in, and I was also kind of disappointed that his role was very minimal, but I felt like, again, overall, he did everything he needed to in the film.
Yeah.
And I can't say it was like, oh man, that was a groundbreaking performance. But again, it's not an over-the-top character like Matthew Lillard, but it was still like a fun inclusion. I feel like it's a fun inclusion for fans of horror.
And for Scream fans. Yeah.
And doing that. So I thought that was like just a neat little story that I did have to mention there. And you could tell they were building up the reveal, because even whenever he pops up, they don't show him first.
They don't show his face. Back, and then they show the back of his head and he kind of turns.
Yeah, the reveal, and that's whenever they're expecting the audience to go, you know, nobody did that in the audience, surprisingly. But
well, I didn't even really recognize it, man.
No, with the beard and everything and glasses, no way, no how.
It wasn't until after the movie that I was like, ooh.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, it was like this is nice. That was like a nice casting. Doesn't affect too much, but yeah. So I feel like
gonna keep adding Scream members. I think. So the next movie is gonna have Courtney Cox.
Yes, and then also have to break out Nev Campbell.
Yeah.
You know, all the gang's all here.
Like the gang's all here. Steve.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's the characters. One thing and it wasn't really like, I know believe I had talked about this in the first film, but one of the things I got to be honest about that I really appreciate about these films is how much money they're willing to spend, not only in the environment but the animatronics as well. Because like looking like, again, you talked about it, like the scenery, the setting of like an abandoned pizzeria, like it's just perfect. I mean, literally Scott Cawthon got a niche and just took it and ran. Like it was a great idea. I'm so happy he did that. And there was a lot of moments where production wise, you know, looking at the scenery of not only the the franchised Freddy Fazbear's, but the original one, the buildings itself, I was like, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Like, genuinely, like, and it's so funny because it's one of those things I rarely ever gush on about the settings per se. Usually it'll be like, oh man, I really like the natural landscape. But
that really is the highlight of these movies, yeah.
It is. Just seeing them put a lot of money into it, which I'm pretty sure that they also kind of knew what they needed to focus on money-wise there, is not only making the setting look good, but the animatronics look good. And there's a lot of stuff with the setting. Like, first off, I like seeing kind of like how, you know, Freddy Fazbear's, the original location was whenever it was up and running, and you kind of see it in the flashback, and then see how it looks kind of more dilapidated, run down, and see all the aspects there. But even the original location, after, you know, it's like even worse for wear after the last battle that took place there. Because, like, you know, there's a scene whenever they go back there and you look on the ground and there's like, you know, old, you know, ticket counter prizes spread everywhere, and just seeing like the ticket stubs on the ground with the crazy looking carpet and everything else, like that to me, I was like, already vindicated. Like, it's just cool to see in person. Yeah,
and I do love that they started with that flashback scene. You could see it like in action, you know, like this is what it looked like whenever it was like a fun place for kids. And like, I think that really adds to then when you explore that environment later in the movie when it's all dilapidated, being like, yeah, this is you can see what they were doing with the lazy river or whatever. And now it's just really creepy to be in an abandoned building with this. So I think, showing that bit of life and then seeing all the life drained from it is, it just adds to the spooky.
Yeah, I was just genuinely very much like the setting production of, you know, the Freddy Fazbear locations especially. I'm like, this, like, you spent the right amount of money making it look as good as it did on both locations, because I think it also helps with the immersion of it. But also, as we talked about previously, one of our favorite things about the first film was the animatronics themselves looking so good. And of course, Jim Henson created all of the other animatronics here, so like the toy versions of the Freddy Fazbear gang, you know, as well as like other ones. And I was genuinely kind of like, yep, they look great. Yeah, they look really good. They move great. And I was amazed with how many animatronics they had in this film. And I was like, yep, looks good. One thing that I don't know if you knew is the fact that there are voice actors credited to these animatronics because the toy versions talk a lot more.
I saw some of them. I saw Megan Fox was Chica.
Yeah, that was the most wild reveal whenever they had revealed it, because Toy Bonnie is Matt Pat.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, they just picked up his voice.
I was wondering. I was like, there was no Matt Pat reference in this movie, but there was. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's the voice of Toy Bonnie, just voice pitched up, and then Megan Fox being Chica. Like on paper, hearing that, I was like, but why? Like, it wasn't like immediate disgust, but it just was like, okay. But honestly, I was genuinely surprised. She did good.
Yeah,
she did good. I believed it, and I believe for Toy Freddy, it's Kellen Goff who did the voice of Foxy in the previous film.
Okay.
Again, he's a prolific voice actor, and I was like, yep, it's all
awesome.
good voice performances from them. But yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite things, is the fact that the animatronics look good. I was a tiny bit disappointed in a lot of the actions they do try to do. They try to keep it as faithful as possible, keeping it purely just puppet wise, but I am pretty sure with one puppet in particular, Gangle, there were some bits where I'm like, I think that might have been CG'd, which granted, with some of the stuff they tried to do with Gangle, I can understand it, but it is sort of like, aw, like, you know, wish they could have found a different way to make it work, but, you know, as is, you know.
The little propeller hat boy?
Oh, no, that's Balloon Boy. And Gangle is the pull-apart Foxy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one.
He definitely seemed a little CG. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But, I mean, aside from that, there was hardly any CG used in this film, and, you know, like for the action scenes, and in all honesty, I just prefer to keep it that way. And also, I felt like the marionette was also well done.
The marionette was a great character. Yeah, it was spooky.
Yeah,
in a much, I mean, obviously in a way that still fit in the universe, but in a way that, like, you can only do so much with the slow, clunky animatronic jump scares and stuff. But having like the puppet that like reaches out at you, like, I thought they did a great job with that.
They really did do a great job. It was funny because it's one of those things that while we were watching the film, my wife was like, "What is this film rated?" And I said PG-13. She's like, "Really?" Because they do stretch it to the limits of PG-13, and it is kind of funny because I'm not gonna lie, if I was like a 12-year-old boy, I would have been all over this.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely would have been more hyped about it. And I think maybe that's what I can appreciate and latch onto even at the ripe age of 32, you know, 20 years above the normal demographic, where I can watch and I'm like, yeah, I would have liked this as a kid. You know, kind of like enjoy that. And it is funny because towards the end of the film, whenever the credits are rolling, one of the boys was like, that movie was kind of scary. Like,
yeah, I saw a lot of kids in there that I was like, if I was aware of the contents of this movie as a parent, probably wouldn't take a kid that young there, because I mean, there's a lot of blood, a lot of violence. It's I mean, it's a horror movie.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I can believe it's still PG-13, but it does press it. It's definitely like maybe mid-teen, older teen, appropriate, but like definitely younger kiddos.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah. I mean, when I say younger kiddos, I mean I saw like, you know, probably some 6 and 7 year old. But
yeah,
I'm like that's too young.
that's a little too young, but you know that's how it is as a little kid. Horror just has that interest there. Young. But yeah, so I think that's just one of the things I walked away from this film, kind of feeling satisfied in the fact that I'm like, you know, whenever it comes to movies, there's a couple of times where I could just take a moment and be like, man, that's cinema or whatever. But then I look at a film like this or whatever, and I just kind of look at the whole aspect of it, you know, and I'm just like, man, just the fact they sunk so much money into making this place look perfect. Yeah. The animatronics looking as perfect and faithful as much as they can. That just seems like a victory to me overall. But yeah, I will say towards the end of the film, it does get a little like, okay, this is getting a little silly. Yeah. A little bit. I mean, imagine that, Five Nights at Freddy's film getting a little silly. But there's like one moment where it seems like everything's dire, and then something comes to help them. That we'll have to talk about it in spoilers, but it's moments like that where I'm like,
Yeah, that's what those kind of moments are what I mean when I say that this is like the plot is driven by coincidence. Like, and then this happens.
Yes, very much so. Another thing I will say is I do like that in the universe, like because of the events that occurred, it sparked an interest in Five Nights at Freddy's. Good lord, the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria again, to where they have like a Freddy Fest.
A Fast.
And I do like that, and that is one thing I will give credit towards Mr. Berg, or whatever the teacher's name was, played by Wayne Knight, is the fact that he clearly hates these animatronics. He's just like, you're not even that advanced. They're not even that good. And then, like, that's all the kids know about, so you know he's just being tormented relentlessly about it. And I feel like it does work out good for the plot, but it is funny that everyone's like, oh yeah, Freddy Fazbear's awesome again. You know, sort of that 80s nostalgia coming back like Stranger Things did.
Yeah.
You know, doing that. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, was there anything else you wanted to talk about before spoilers or anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We hit all of it.
I think so. I think we hit it pretty good. I guess the only thing left to do is talk about what you rate the film.
Oh, what do I rate Five Nights at Freddy's? Well, I think it'd only be appropriate if I gave Five Nights at Freddy's two. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna give it a 5. As a 5 out of 10 movie. I enjoyed it maybe a little more than 5 out of 10 might suggest. But yes, as far as a critical standard for a movie goes, there's some plot holes, there's some Phantom Menace ass shit, you know, where they're just like, and there's suddenly convenient this and convenient that the plot really is starts to deteriorate the longer the movie goes on, and I just you know, I can't mark it too high for those reasons. You know, the characters they kind of try to develop them a little bit, but I don't really love what they do with Vanessa and Mike, and those are like the main characters. Yeah. So for those reasons, I'm keeping it at like a 5. But boy, I think it was even spookier and even cooler universe to witness than the first movie, possibly. Just being able to see both locations, getting to see you know, a new sort of the toy versions of the creatures, but then also the marionette playing a big role there. I think was a fantastic spooky addition. And exploring the original Fazbear's building was there was all kinds of neat stuff, whereas the first movie was sort of driven by the mystery of the place and piecing it all together by the end. This one did have a sort of vehicle of, like, from the start you get a little bit of the motivation and you come in with some understanding, and so you can just sort of like have a little bit more understanding of the world as you drive through it. So yeah, I liked it. I really, again, the strong points are the environment and, you know, the animatronics and all that kind of stuff, more so than any deep character development or you know, mind-blowing plot points. But yeah, I would recommend. I think it's a fun time for the whole fam above the age of 13. I mean, do whatever you want with your parenting decisions, but I think it's a pretty spooky movie for kids, even though it has these fun little kid characters. But yeah, it's like 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay, that is totally fair and justified.
Thank you for validating my score.
You're welcome. I know you needed that. Yeah, for me, it was funny because I was like sitting there and, you know, I'm like watching the film, and then by the end of it, I'm like, where do I rate this film? And believe it or not, it's the same as the first one. It's a 6 out of 10 for me personally. But here's the thing. There are aspects I like about the first one a little bit better than what the second film did, but there's a lot of aspects with the second film that I definitely appreciate more than the first film. And who knows, maybe on rewatch I'd feel a little bit differently, you know, knowing what they did in the second one versus this one. But I was pretty genuinely like, okay, yeah, okay. And in my eyes, it's pretty equal with one another. I wouldn't say, like, you know, 2 is way worse than the first one, but I also wouldn't say the first one is leagues better than the other one. I feel like they're kind of right on par with one another. Like, you know, it's hard for me to justify, like, if you're talking about production setting wise and everything. I mean, it's easy to be like even more floored, especially since I imagine the budget was much bigger for the second film, knowing how successful the first film was. Therefore, you're able to get a lot more, especially with two Freddy's locations, way more animatronics, everything like that. But I do feel like the story does suffer a bit. There are good ideas, and I'm like, this was a good idea. I just feel like it was, unfortunately, it needed a little bit more shaping. I felt like, maybe adding this, removing that, sort of, needed to go back to the cutting board, drawing board, whatever it needs to be. So if you're to ask, like, what's my favorite between the two, I don't know, maybe the first one, but again, that's very, like, I can't commit a lot to that. Like I said, maybe on rewatch I'd be able to weigh the two out, which is why I feel like this is just as good as the first one, which honestly kind of relieves me a little bit, because I try not to get spoiled on films that are currently in theaters that I plan on seeing. And whenever the initial critic scores came out for Five Nights at Freddy's 2, all together collectively, and mind you, it's Rotten Tomatoes, it's not gospel or whatever, but the critic scores accumulated to about 13%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, okay, well,
I
no, definitely not that bad. But then now that the audiences have seen it, it's literally a critics versus audience situation, because they rated it an 88%.
Yeah, that's always right. I feel like for anything that's this level of hype, you just got to find the average between those two. Not to be a centrist here, but I mean, the audience probably overhypes it a little too much because they love Five Nights at Freddy's and are willing to ignore a lot of cinema sins or whatever. But then, yeah, a lot of critics that aren't fucking geriatric people that review movies for a living are like, what is this? There's a bear? It's not a real bear. This is a 1 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, so I definitely I am genuinely kind of right in the middle there. And, they've talked about, they definitely set up the film to have a sequel follow-up, and I could at least see this franchise doing one more film.
For sure.
I know there's a lot more content to where they could keep making films forever. And I think, in all honesty, it might be smart to strike while the fire's hot.
I think they're definitely going to do whatever gives the studio money. And as long as people keep seeing the films, they're going to shit these out.
Yeah, I mean, it was about a $40 million budget, I believe. And they've already have met that on opening day, let alone opening weekend, which I think they're pressing about 60 million. So, it's like Matthew Lillard has talked about. He's like, the sequel just depends on how well the second one does. And I hope that they're able to, I think they're on the right track. As weird as it is, even if I rate it the same as if there was no movement, I do think they are heading towards the right track.
Yeah, I do think they made this movie with a third one in mind, even like down to the plot. Just I think they did a good job setting up a realistic sequel after this. But.
Yeah, and I feel like they are listening to fans and what they want, and ultimately the fandom is important. I mean,
for stuff like this especially, because that's who's gonna go see your movie.
Because I mean, that's the wild thing. Because if you compare this, Five Nights at Freddy's to Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, that film kind of got panned by critics, but because the people at Paramount listened to audiences, critique of the Sonic film whenever they saw Ugly Sonic, and they changed it, they're like, we like that better. And then 2, critics still hated it, but the fans still loved it. And by the time 3 came out, the fans loved it so much, but the critics actually liked it too. So I think if they're able to build up,
I think Sonic is an excellent franchise to point to as the model for how to listen to fans, because every single movie got better because they listened to what the fans wanted and then implemented that in the sequel.
Yeah, so I'm hoping. I wouldn't even say hoping. I'm pretty confident in the fact that I think they're going to just continue taking this franchise in the right path, and as long as it makes enough money for them, I think Blumhouse will allow Scott Cawthon to do what he wants. And,
Mm-hmm.
you can obviously tell this is a passion project between Scott Cawthon and Matthew Lillard trying to build this franchise. And with the way they kind of left the end, like, if anybody knows anything about FNAF lore, the next film is exactly what you think it's going to be, kind of following. So I think overall, I do have hope for this franchise. Even if I give it like a 6 out of 10, it's a very enjoyable 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
I felt very satisfied leaving the theater, so that's my overall thoughts on it. I would say there, without going into spoilers, of course, which we're going to be heading to right so yeah, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about that opening scene.
Please.
It's not quite the bite. It's not quite the bite of 87, but it's
I was hyperventilating whenever the year was popping up. It was like 1.
They did that shit on purpose.
8, and I was like, 2.
Yep. I was like,
Oh.
that's the wrong year.
That's not the right year. Yeah, I'm doing that.
Even as someone that's only aware of some of the references, I was like, oh, is it going to be this? Are we going to witness it? But no. But I did love, I love that opening scene to set up the main character or the main villain's motivations of Charlotte. Who's ignored by parents. You find out later that she's ignored by her own dad.
I felt like it's one of those things that I'm like, I feel like, movie script wise, I'm like, this is a brilliant way to open it. But I felt like there was definitely some sloppy execution in some areas there. But I still was like, this is a great way to open this film.
As an idea. And I would feel the same as Charlotte's motivations continue throughout the film or whatever is also like maybe a little bit sloppy execution. But the writing was there. Where her seeing some kid being sort of shoved away by, was that Springtrap?
Yes.
Matthew Lillard in the costume.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this kid's gonna get murdered or whatever. And she tries to find an adult for help, and they're all like, fuck off, kid.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even like, the adult's like, oh, what's with you? He's like, be gone, child.
Yeah, and
be gone from me.
They have several moments in this film that's just like communications errors is why these things happen, which is a poopy writing. I don't like that kind of stuff. But this one was like not even like a believable. It wasn't even like a movie communications error where she's like, I need help, and they're like, and then they shoo her away before she can really explain. She's like, there's a kid that's like in danger, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
who would come after a child in a place like this? Like, it just was bewildering writing at the very least. But I do want to give one credit about one thing. I do like how they set the character up about being like the weird kid that's obsessed with one particular animatronic and just kind of having that connection, because I do think it does play out perfectly. Like I said, it's very well written. There's just a couple of areas where I'm like, that's a scuff.
That's also their audience too. Is like a 12-year-old autistic girl that's hyper fixated on the franchise.
Yeah. But I do also like that you see the younger, Vanessa befriending her, and it would make sense for both of them to be there because Vanessa is William Afton's daughter who works here, and then of course Charlotte is there because she's the daughter of
Henry.
Yes, right? Henry Emily. That's his last name, but you don't even know that at the beginning, which ends up being a reveal later, which I thought was well done. I think there was like no missing context because you could just believe. And I do like that Vanessa is basically like, yeah, why don't you just join this kid's birthday party, try to be included. And then whenever he sees good old Springtrap luring a child in the back, honestly, they did a good job with Springtrap, making him look menacing. Just the glowing eyes and just in the dark. And then whenever she ends up trying to go to the back room, Vanessa tries to stop her because she knows what's going on, but she also knows that like she can't stop it at all. Right. So she's trying to help, but Charlotte goes in regardless because she's like, I gotta save that kid. And of course she tries to pull out the kid, which I don't know if the kid was dead or not necessarily.
No, because he gets up at the end after she gets
stabbed. Right, that makes sense.
So he was like unconscious, I guess.
Yeah, because I guess he was preparing to like kill him because he was like
Whatever
washing
he was
his
gonna
hands,
do, yeah.
which I do like the chase scene. I do feel like it's like a little like it was like a little bit like, okay, you're telling me Springtrap can't catch up to this kid who's
Right.
like trying
who's
to
struggling to hold another kid her size.
it was
yeah.
one of those things where I'm like, it's a little messy writing, but it does lead to what I feel like is a good. I felt like it was written nicely, which I'm sure is probably written nicely because it probably was the original source material going in. But whenever she gets out, and she's like basically breaking down on top of the trap door, and she screams out and then falls over, and you see knife wounds on her back, and then the door drops and she falls, and then as it raises up with the way the
marionette's holding her.
yeah, I was like, I like that. That's very
Yeah.
well done and very disturbing, creepy. Like, I was like, that's
Yeah,
good.
I thought that was an excellent way to introduce the marionette too, because it was just kind of creepy by default, by design. But like you could kind of see how it was supposed to be a fun puppet, but like the way it was introduced was just dark. And of course, their color palettes are like the same, and they explain that Charlotte sees her as some sort of like spiritual mother or something.
Yes.
The marionette at this pizza place. So, no, I actually really liked all that, like, in details, but yeah, I would agree that it was a little bit hokey when she's, like, screams and falls over, and everyone's like, what's this kid doing on stage?
Yeah, a little bit. I liked it, but there's just, like, a couple of things that I'm like,
Yeah.
felt like it could have been a little bit better fine-tuned, but the overall idea of it is definitely, like, yeah, it's a great idea for an opening scene, and again, just production value alone, just seeing the original Freddy Fazbear's location just looks great. Like, even both exteriors of both buildings look great because, like, you could definitely tell this one is definitely, it feels more like an original location, whereas another one does feel like kind of like a brick motor franchised building that they kind of just slapped the sign on. So that's one thing that I'm like, man, that's cool. That's awesome. I love that they took that much detail with it. And again, just having that opening scene, I was like, yeah, this is good. And then it's a long dang time before we see animatronics, which,
Yeah.
that's true. I'm used to. They have to set up the story points, talking about things, all that good stuff, which, they fill in stuff like Mike going on a date with Vanessa for the first time and seeing Breadcrumb Man just going...
That was a funny detail.
That was pretty funny. It didn't make me, like, guffaw laughing out loud, but it was like, that's a good bit.
Yeah, that was a cute little bit. I'll give that one a check mark.
But yeah, I mean, whenever it comes to the rest of the film, like, it's just kind of continually setting up the pieces. And, I do like that Mike sets up the promise of, like, I promise I'll fix them. And then whenever she gets, like, upset one day and she just wants to go find her friends, that's whenever she realizes they're gone.
They're gone. Yeah,
And
they're just gone.
And so
until they need them later, they'll magically show up.
Avenger style.
Yeah.
That part I loved and hated, if that makes sense.
No, I agree because... Yeah, part of what makes Five Nights at Freddy, like one of the central, I would say, rules, I guess, of the universe, at least in the first movie, is that they're not going to leave Freddy's. You're only in danger when you're in Freddy's. But they had to break that rule for this movie, and we'll get to there. But I think, all the stuff where all the animatronics leave, like it made sense. They set up a reason for why the toy ones left and could be remote controlled. But then, like,
the other ones
just showed up, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna die now." It was like, well,
yeah,
that shit was bogus.
I understand. Yeah, there's a lot I could discuss about that ending scene, but I guess one of the main things I do want to talk about is the development of Vanessa dealing with the trauma. And
it's one of those good ideas on paper. I think that I don't love every scene that they used to do it, but I see where they're going with it.
Yeah, because I feel like that was the whole purpose of the film, is seeing the downfall of Vanessa, where it's like, okay, she's kind of a good guy. How do we get her back under the clutches of the William Afton side and going into that, because she's having a lot of trauma, seeing him pop up everywhere, which like just the idea of her struggling with this trauma and all these like childhood secrets because she finally like befriended somebody, and now that that's on the line, it's just one of those things where it feels worse whenever you feel like you can't have a normal life by yourself, let alone if you have other people that are a part of your life as well.
Right.
And I do like that she does try to confront her childhood trauma and everything, because the whole point whenever she tries to do the dream thing, kind of like what Josh did, you know, pulling out like the toys from the kids and placing it down, and then going to that dreamlike stage where she's going to what I assume to be her childhood home at the very least. And then her demon is basically her father. And so I really like that aspect, and I do like that they do try to make William Afton just an overlooming presence, like even visually, you know, him coming down the stairs, looking down on her, everything like that, trying to feel like larger than life.
Or,
and I do
at the end of the hallway,
doing that, you know, or like I do like that it shows her reverting towards her kid stage, which, you know, it's a dream. It makes sense, kind of feeling small, insignificant compared to it. And then she runs and she hides in his workspace there. And I'm going to be completely honest, whenever it comes to my FNAF lore, don't quote me like as gospel, because it's like I think this is what it is. But I was very shocked and surprised to see that during that whole scene, whenever she's hiding from her dad and she looks up and she sees that one animatronic, I believe that's supposed to be the animatronic she is connected with. Like basically that was like little sister, because you know sister location the game, that's the main animatronic from that. And that has connections to Vanessa. So I thought that was curious. So I'm curious on how they're going to integrate that into the story. But I thought that was like, oh, nifty. They threw that in there kind of as a sneak peek. So it also just kind of links in towards the trauma. But I do like also that whenever her dad tries to capture her and just tries to... And it's funny because I felt like, again, with his performance, I don't think he needed to be like unhinged psycho or whatever, but I felt like he could have been a lot more menacing. I felt like the pieces were in place. He just needed another take or different.
I would agree with that. Yeah. He was sort of like reading off the lines. But...
Yeah, and I mean, I do like that, you know, is able to snap back into her adult form, then all of a sudden she's in her police form, and so of course her main weapon is a gun, which I love that she just
fucking
blasted Matthew Lillard off the banister.
For that to happen, because before that happened, she sort of has like a flashback episode in the spin room or whatever.
Yes.
And she pulls a gun on that guy that's like just trying to help her. But I thought that was a much more compelling depiction of trauma.
Too.
Of like when she's doing the spin classes and she kind of like sees these reflections of him or Springtrap or whatever in the mirrors, and she's just trying to shake it off. But she's already in that sort of adrenaline rushing state of in the middle of a spin class, and this sort of creepy room that's like makes sense, but like when you give it the context that she's having an episode, is scary because you're in a dark room with mirrors and and then I love that her response was like unhealthy and unhinged, where she like pulls a gun on a guy that's just like what is trying to help her, but she's just in that fight or flight state.
And in all honesty, I like that would be something that I would kind of guffaw at, but I actually thought it worked out perfectly, especially
because she's a cop. And like she's this is not like cops.
That's like her main
defense.
Pulling guns on people. Yes,
and she didn't like have her finger on the trigger, or she had good trigger discipline, but still she like instantly pulls a gun on a dude that like is over her shoulder because she's in that mode, you know. Like that made sense to me. But then like trying to visualize a dream sequence can like fall a little more flat.
Yeah, it fell a little flat. I felt like the dream sequence was good. It should have been in the film. I felt like they did a lot of good things, but also
it's a good decision.
I just felt like it just there should have been more takes, or maybe change up some of the stuff. I
think it's always hard to pull off like dream sequence stuff because the audience knows this isn't real. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so there's like a filter there. So you're seeing an artistic expression of someone's trauma or whatever, and so I think you kind of dig into it a little bit more, and especially whenever there are elements that like don't quite deliver. It's like, all right,
yeah, and I just felt like I was like, this is such a great idea for this sequel to dive into. I wish it would have been better.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it boils down to overall, but I'm still happy they still went for it.
Yeah.
Instead
I'd
of
agree.
like doing something else. I felt like it was good. It just needed, I wish it would have been done a little bit differently, but that's beside the point. I still felt like that was probably one of my favorite moments was just this idea of Vanessa dealing with this trauma and everything. Unfortunately, because she's like, and of course they try to allude to the fact that she's dealing with trauma, because even Mike's best friend's like, oh, that girl with the crazy eyes,
Yeah.
crazy eyes, she's probably crazy, right? And talking about that, and whenever she tries to talk to Mike about it, Mike is like getting irrationally upset with her for whatever reason, like, you're not helping Abby by doing this, and it's like, why are you being openly antagonistic?
Yeah, I agree. The first time that confrontation happened made a little sense to me, because it was right after he learned that she what did he learn? Because he called the guy on the phone and he discovered that
Oh, that's what had happened. So the night that whenever he's
that
like,
he was best friends with Charlotte, that she knew Charlotte or whatever.
yes,
And he's like, why didn't you tell me that there were other kids wrapped up in this? So I got why he would be upset about that, but the fact that he was so upset about that suddenly mid-conversation, that he was ignoring the safety of Abby, who's like his primary, the primary motivator for his entire character, was bizarre to me. But
yeah, like, because like it's one of those things that it took me so out of left field, because how the scene happens is like whenever she went to go try Abby went to go try to fix the animatronics, and then Mike arrives there and says, I'm sorry, was going to tell you, I have no idea where they're at. Hey, how about we pick up something from the prize counter, which of course there's like the Speak and Spell Freddy edition,
which I love. That whole toy is a cute little
I thought it was great. I thought it was very well done, good device to have,
and scary, just without being over the top or whatever, to have it be able to talk to you, and it's like A B Y Abby, come. And it's just like creepy Chica talking to you through an old Speak and Spell type.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I liked that, and I do like that's how she ends up being able to find the original location, because this thing is guiding her to it.
That's a good plot device.
And I do like that whenever she's drawing pictures of the river and everything else, of course Mike's like, oh, very nice, there's a river and everything, and then whenever Vanessa hears about it, she's like, oh shit, because she knows about it. But whenever she is like, I have to tell Mike about this, that she went to the original location, and I just don't have good feels about it.
That's the part that baffled me, that she didn't, that this is the communication error type plot device that is stupid to me, where she couldn't just be like, shut the fuck up for a second.
Yeah,
she went to a place where her life is in danger, and instead she just left it like, look out for Abby,
Well, it was like frustration on both sides, because Mike, again, he gets like randomly antagonistic towards her, just being like, like, I feel like you're bad for Abby and everything else. I can't trust you. How did you not know? Why did you not let me know other kids died? And it's just like,
yeah, it's like, I can understand his frustration there, but yeah, again, that he was like cutting her off while she was trying to explain to him, like,
so frustrating.
No, she went to the other location, like, to the fact that he couldn't even register that there's a second location until somebody else tells him about it.
Yes. So that was one of the things that I was kind of in disbelief with how bad it was. Like, I will just straight up say that was bad.
It was bad.
Like, in order to, I understand why, because they're trying to add more friction between the two, but it just was poorly done, out of character.
Right.
It
could have been written better.
It could have, but it is what it is. And then, of course, continuing on, since Abby is now finally getting to meet with Chica, talking with her. And I do like that the animatronics are talking to her, because I think it does show a little bit like, hey, these animatronics are a little bit more advanced because they were original location, not a franchised off location. And so I do like, ideally, that initially she thinks it's Chica, but really it's Charlotte.
Yeah.
And they don't hide that as a last minute reveal, like, psych, I was Charlotte the whole time. Like, they pretty much early on show it's her, because whenever they captured Vanessa, which I guess we probably should talk about the Ghoul Patrol, what happened before then, but I was just, I'm happy they didn't pull it off as like a oh, here's the twist at the end of the film or
Right.
whatever. Like, it's better that the reveal is early on.
And they even explained it with
But,
the technology. They were like, yeah, they're all like wirelessly connected. It was really advanced for the time or whatever. Yeah.
doing that, which I felt like I can't remember too much about the first film, but the group that invades the Freddy Fazbear's, I felt like was literally entering there just so they could see people die, which I was all for. But at least with like this sort of like ghoul patrol that shows up, supernatural hunters, I felt like not only did it serve us good scares, good kills, but it also gave more about the lore, especially with the security guard Michael talking about it and showing the environment.
And that was a good way to introduce Michael, which I don't really love what they did with his character the next time you see him on the screen. But but it does make sense. I'm glad that they entered him in, and then he's a sort of question mark for a large part of the movie, which I think is good.
Yes, I felt like that was good, and I felt like that just did a lot better because it's like, okay, that makes sense, you know. Of course, you know, Michael is going to introduce people in because he's trying to continue what his father did.
Right.
You know, taking revenge and just killing people just cuz, basically. And the fact that it's supernatural hunters, I felt like I believe that.
Yeah, and it also tied in with the context of the second movie where everybody kind of loves the Fazbear's resurgence now.
Yes.
And so it's like, of course, they're going to do an episode on this spooky place or whatever. So it was good, like, background lore for this series, but then also just fodder for the kill machine.
Yeah, so I very much appreciated that, and especially with the main gal, like, being like, do you hear that music box, you know, and then going down to the marionette's sort of chambers, and then of course she turns off the music box because she doesn't know that thing is lulling to sleep, and it opens and it jumps out. I was like, this is really well done. Like, a lot of the suspensefulness and build up, because especially whenever she turns off the music box and you start hearing like the old gears winding open, because that was the only thing keeping her at bay. So I was very impressed by that sequence where I'm like, this is so much more well done. It feels more natural as opposed to, I mean, even though you knew they were probably going to die, at least it was like, it felt like there was more to it as opposed to, hey, let's go rob the place. Am I right, boys? Yeah, boys. You know, go in.
Yeah, it was better. I will say, however, very hokey at times.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that falls in the river and then just decides
That
to stay
would-
in the river.
I-
It's like,
I-
well, I guess I'm in the river now.
Yeah. I do love the shot of like whenever he looks up, all of the creepy marionette dolls that were in the cave are gone, and whenever he looks down in the water with a flashlight, there's like 100 of them. That was unnerving.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love
yeah.
the detail that, like, yeah, there's one left and it just sort of, like, falls in.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those, like, they do a good job of making the animatronics actually kind of creepy. And, you know, which I do feel like the first one kind of struggled a little bit more with, but I think it just comes to overall design.
The design of the toy ones, I think, were a little spookier, yeah.
Yes, but, and it's, like, no fault, again. Like, I don't fault the animatronics. Like, it should have been more scary looking. They were still scary-ish, but you know, I feel like that's just indicative of the franchise itself, because as they continue to making more models, they're like, let's make it a little more scary. But yeah, and I do like that with the marionette, basically the marionette puppet itself kind of served as the normal host, but she would take over the bodies of individuals and they would take on that shape, because it was very creepy at the very least, kind of seeing someone be possessed by this marionette and hold on. So I felt like that was well done, and of course using Vanessa, who would know the security code since she patrolled the Freddy Fazbear locations, making sure no one was messing with it, trying to again continue the Afton's family goal, you know, made sense. And it's like, okay, these animatronics aren't able to leave because of the parameter, so we need to shut it off so that way the animatronics go free and they go after the parents. Because I do like that overall the antagonist of this film is Charlotte and her vengeful spirit. Like, it's not like, William Afton shenanigans, even though I do miss Matthew Lillard as a villain. I do feel like for the story, I felt like this was much better to tackle.
I agree, and yeah, it's a motivation that's pretty easy to track. Like it makes sense seeing how she died in the state that she was in, and they explain it pretty well with just like a simple one line about how her spirit's stuck in that emotional state or whatever.
Yeah, and I especially like that Vanessa talks about the fact that she did talk to the spirit of Charlotte a lot, even as a little kid, and it was only because of the music box that finally lulled her to sleep. It was like, it was good that I felt like there was a history between Charlotte and Vanessa.
Yeah,
I definitely felt like there added a lot more investment.
It made it so you could buy the fact that Vanessa would be in that location and could just kind of get tied up and be set loose instead of be eviscerated by the robots. You know?
Yes, very, very, very true. I do like that they did have a reference, a very specific reference, mind you. It's whenever they're like, how do we get to the science fair? Because Abby is dead set on going to the science fair no matter what, which I do. It's so shitty, but I do love how Wayne Knight's character is like, what's our motto? Otters better help each otter.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like, don't show up to the science fair. This will be our third win in a row.
Yeah, he encourages her because her original science fair project is looking poo poo. He's like, I'm just gonna cross you off the list. But yeah, super shitty that he doesn't even let her know that he does that.
No.
And she shows up to the science fair like, where's my booth?
Yeah, because I like how she has this ridiculously good looking Bonnie animatronic.
Yeah.
Like a little mini
built.
one.
Yeah.
And then as soon as she presents it, he's like, oh, you brought it? Yeah, here, let me find a good table.
That's the part where he was like a believable asshole. And then if he was just in the classroom and he's like, I really need to win this science fair because that's what he cares about as a robotics teacher. And it's like, yeah, he's a piece of shit for like not letting her show up. But like, I understood his motivation there. But like, if she showed up and her project looked awesome, then he'd be like, why wouldn't he be like, well, let's give her. At that point, it was just like spite. Like, I don't like this kid.
Yeah, literally
let
just
break
spite.
her project.
Which I do love the line, and this was a very, like, it even got an audible audience laugh. It's like, why are you such a dick?
Yeah.
He's like, who said that?
Who said that?
Yeah. So I was like,
It was an important addition, I think, because otherwise that question would be left in the audience's head. But at least the in-universe characters are also like, why are you a dick?
Yeah, I thought that was great, but I totally needed to explain that before getting to the point about Abby going back to Chica and being upset, being like, they destroyed my science fair project, and it's like, well, I need to talk to them, but in order to talk to them, I need you to freeze the security system, which I do love that, Charlotte through Chica is pretending to be Chica to get what she wants, which is revenge, but she acts like she's giving the code because she's also squeezing the information out of Vanessa, because it's like, if you don't give the code, Vanessa, I will kill Abby.
Yeah, I love that little moment of just Chica looking at the camera and like getting the squinty eyes while she pets Abby's head,
Yes.
So like Abby couldn't tell, but like Chica's like, yes, violent intent.
Yeah, and so it's believable. Like,
Yeah.
I believe Vanessa would be like, okay, fine, yeah, here's the code, and breaking out. And so then as soon as they get out, it's like, well, Chica, even if you could leave, how are we going to get there? And they have the same taxi driver from the first film, and he's like, oh no, not you. And whenever he cuts over to, someone heavy getting into the vehicle, they turn around and it's Chica without her beak, which is one of the jump scares that happens in 2, is Chica's face without the beak, just to make it look more menacing. It's like, oh, Chica, your beak fell off. She's like, oh, sorry, haha, plugging it back in, which one thing I will say, because of how the film has gone and everything, Wayne Knight's character being a huge dick ultimately made me know he was going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no way he would be like that big of a jerk without killing them.
As soon as it was obvious that Chica was going to the science fair, I'm like, yep, we know what's going to happen.
And I love that whenever, like, Abby's presenting Chica,
he like doubles down instead of being wildly.
Yes!
Everyone else is wildly impressed. And he's just like, this is a person in a suit. I'm not even going to check if it's a person in a suit.
And I do love that it's like, I want to see what's going on in his head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's just death right there.
Oh, absolutely. I did think part of that science fair scene pissed me off. It was like, how is everybody obsessed with Freddy Fazbear's and also doesn't recognize that this is literally just an animatronic from the Freddy Fazbear's that's within biking distance of this school.
I know, they were just like, whoa,
You're
crazy
so impressed.
costume.
No, they were like, no, not even that. But like at the science fair, she wins first place for just like looting.
I didn't even put that together.
Just looting a pizzeria. And she's like, yep, I built this, I get. And nobody was like, well, I was definitely alive 20 years ago that I'm judging this science fair, and I'm aware that this is a pizzeria restaurant animatronic that you just brought to the science fair. Here's first place.
Normally, I'd say the parents helped her out, but she doesn't have any. So you get an A.
There you go.
Yeah, woohoo. Yeah, that is funny. I never put two and two together. I guess they just thought, like, yeah, with FNAF fandom popping up, of course you just build an animatronic.
This. Yeah, but it's like, yeah. Anyways.
But I do like that whenever... Mike ends up being able to find the original location because he ends up going to the house of the phone number he called because it said Freddy's a murderer. Call to let him know. And I do like the in-universe reason where basically Henry and Emily is like, yeah, once I saw people being obsessed with, Freddy Fazbear again, I felt like you probably should know the origin or a lot of the bad stuff that comes with it. And I do like that it's him just basically kind of crashing out after the death of his daughter, where he obviously feels extremely guilty about it. And of course he's like, oh, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this music box.
Yeah.
It'll be vitally important later.
This is going to be an important plot device.
And so whenever Mike runs to the original Fazbear location, which I will say is cleverly pointed out because it had like a little advertisement. So he's like, okay, it's right there. I'm going to go out there. And so he goes there and then he sees that, well, actually, one of the things that I was very surprised by, but I was also like, that's awesome, is whenever he crashes in, he sees he sees the original animatronics, but they're a lot more beat up this time round. And as soon as I saw it, like, I had forgotten that in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the original animatronics, not the toy versions, appear in the game, but they're torn up and mangled. So I was like, oh, that's awesome they included it. I totally didn't even put two and two together that they were going to throw them in. But whenever he comes in, talks to Vanessa about what's going on, and they're like, okay, we need to find out where they are. There's tracker locations in each, toy. Vanessa's going to go out here, whereas Mike will stay here, which of course there's a lot of like kitschy liners where he's like, where's the door to this place? And it's like, there is no door, which is a joke in the fact that the setup for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is the desk setup that he was at, where there's no doors to close. The only thing you have to manage is your flashlight power and the little screen thing. And he's like, no door? What moron designed this place? There, kind of like rib, nudge, sort of joke. And even the mask where he's like, there's no way that will work. And that's a device you use in Five Nights at Freddy's to cover yourself from the animatronics. So I was like, that's clever. They're really thinking hard of, okay, how do we integrate Five Nights at Freddy's 2 into this movie? And I felt like, even though it was kind of beat for beat, kind of like, yeah, let's run the game. Whoa, let's run the game. Whoa. I felt like it was done well enough and believable and didn't distract from the main story going on too much. So I was like, cool.
I also like how they explained that, whenever they took apart Foxy and put him back together, that he never quite worked the same way, and then he's the one that can see past the mask or whatever, and it was like,
just was kind of like jacked up because his sensor is messed up, so of course he can't register that if something's an animatronic or not, so I thought that was well done. Just seeing those animatronics also come to life, that was a moment where I'm like, oh man, like, I'm not even a mega fan, but I am getting a little hyped seeing the animatronics come to life, because of course Toy Chica at the science fair is like, someone's trying to shut us down right now, wake up the prototypes,
right.
And it's like, and so it's like, the old prototypes that was used at this location and are all torn up, and they looked exactly the way they do in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, because that's obviously, again, probably surprise to no one. Their attention to detail whenever it comes to production and everything, spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on, no notes, 100% perfect across the board, in my humble opinion. And I do love that they commit very hard to the physical aspect as much. The only thing that sucked is that I felt like whenever Gangle was on top of Vanessa's car, there were some moments where I'm like, it kind of looks a little CG-ish there. I felt like they definitely tried to keep it all, like practical effects, but yeah.
I'll also say that just the suspense that they were trying to go for, both in that scene and the scene in the office, was like a little ridiculous. Like there's times where there's like, you're about to get killed, and he's like about to get killed for like 10 minutes.
Yes.
As like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, let me just type this into the computer really quick, I don't recognize that I'm in danger as I'm surrounded by four animatronics within 2 feet of me that all want to kill me. I just thought, I was like, all right, like sometimes with some of these movies they're putting out these days, they're stretching the danger limit. I'm like, okay, like it gets to a point.
It was a little ridiculous and silly with that. It was fun, but it was also like, okay, come on. This is like usual, like, the bomb's going to go off in 3 seconds. And then, of course, it's like 3 minutes till the bomb goes off.
They just keep going back to the bomb timer, and it's like 3, 2, and then it's 2, 1.
Yeah, like
1, and it lasts for a full minute. Yeah, there was a lot of scenes like that. I also thought the whole, like, with Foxy on the car, and she's driving Gangle on the car, and she like stabs through her that first time. I was like, oh shit, like it's going for it, and then she just sort of like continues to drive with him on top of the car.
Yeah, I guess it just works out good, which, I mean, it does lead to the funny scene of whenever she decides to like ram the car towards the house, and Gangle coincidentally crashes into Freddy, who's trying to kill one of the original parents.
Yeah, that's one of the coincidence scenes that I kind of rolled my eyes at a little bit. I like what they like. It makes sense because she knew where his location was. Like at first, I was just like, did she just ran into a random house and it happened to be that one? But I was like, okay, so she like kind of aimed it. But
still, like that
to
precision.
Know that she could hit and it would fly into the living room where he was and just take them both out. And then she's like, she's not even like, holy shit, I did that or whatever. She's just like, another day on the job. All right, you guys got to get to safety,
Yeah, but I do like, at the very least, they try to make, Charlotte actually have like actions outside with, the toy animatronics going out trying to kill people, because Freddy's trying, he walks through the convention, and everyone's like, "Oh, great costume!"
You want to enter the contest? He's like, "I do.
Yeah, I do.
First,
I need to rip the heads off people."
Yeah,
walking off.
Awesome.
And so I liked, the toys trying to exact revenge on the parents.
Yeah.
But I do think it was a little cheesy at some parts. And then, of course, there is one scare that genuinely was kind of like, I wouldn't say it actually terrified me or scared me, but it was like, oh, that was kind of unnerving, is whenever Abby's being like put in bed by Toy Chica, and then her chest starts to crack and everything, and I'm like, what's going on? And then once her chest explodes, you see the marionette jump out over Abby. I was like, oh,
that was
God, that's kind of terrifying.
A lot of the spooky scenes involving the marionette, where you just kind of see her slid in the background, or like, she gets to be sneaky, where none of the other animatronics really get to that often, because they're like, I love that she could kind of be the sneaky balance to that.
Yeah, and of course, because like Vanessa is able to get a ride from Mike's friend, who this is his second appearance in the film,
right?
Going all the way, because she's like, okay, I know Toy Chica is at Abby and Mike's house, and they go there, and of course Abby's possessed by Charlotte, aka the marionette, and of course they're doing hide and seek, which is a callback to what they did earlier, because Vanessa was trying to find Abby, and Abby jump scared her. It's like, don't you know you should always look behind the doors? That's the number one spot. And of course, whenever Vanessa has to hide, you think, oh, she's hiding behind the door because I said that's the number one hiding spot. But then she looks, and then surprise, not there. She's adjacent to it, and that's whenever she's able to try to tackle her, slip away. And as it seems like, all hope is lost, and, Vanessa's going to die, the music box plays, and Mike's there holding it out.
Yeah.
just repelling Charlotte away, and so she disappears. And so it's like, oh, everything's good, except all of the toy animatronics are back and they're ready to kill. And before this happened, there was the one cheesy scene where, like, Mike's trying to figure out what to do amidst all this chaos, and he's like, I know what I need to do. And he goes to the franchise location they visited in the first film. He's like, guys, I don't know if you could hear me.
He just prays.
He prays to the animatronic gods that they can hear him. And it's like, if you can hear me, Abby's in danger. She needs your help. And leaves, which, I mean, I understand why, because they need to have it realistically of why the animatronics would know. But as soon as, like, all hope's lost and the toy animatronics are there, you hear dum 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 dum, and I'm like, oh god, there's Foxy.
It's the Avengers.
Yes, just that was what it literally felt like, because it's like, Foxy, Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica, all stepping in, and they just demolish, destroy the toy animatronics. And I was like, this is so stupid and bad, but also I kind of love it.
It's kind of hype, even though it's cheesy.
But then I love how after they destroy it, they're immediately like, and it's like, what's going on? It's like, they weren't meant to leave the location.
The Phantom Menace exploded the control
and I'm guessing it, like, the kid that was talking to Mike was Golden Freddy, which, surprising, I guess Golden Freddy's a rare appearance, so of course he can't appear. Golden Freddy's the only one who I guess could have left, because he leaves in the first film to take Abby back.
Oh, is it the
like,
same kid? Or?
I think so, but anyways, talking about it, it's like, we can no longer stay in the bodies. It's time for us to move on. But know this, with us leaving, we can't hold him back. And it's like, him? Who's him? And of course, he doesn't have time to do that as they go away. And so you think, like,
I thought that kid was Chica. Because, like,
I can't remember who was who. It could have been Chica, because
like,
that's the thing that he was talking about, is like, I'm friends with Chica, so that would make sense.
And then they look at Chica, and, like, the light goes out, and whenever he looks back, the kid's gone. So I
need to rewatch
Chica.
the first film to remember who's who in the film, but he was talking to one of the kids of the animatronic, and I do like how they're quickly trying to get rid of all the animatronics. Like, okay, Toys versions are dead. The prototype, well, are the prototypes? I guess they're still up technically, right?
I guess so.
Yeah,
they just kind of left them there.
And then the, like, original animatronics we see in the first film are also just out of commission there, trying to set this up. And so, like, after this huge fight, oh my god, I freaking forgot. You probably could add something to it, but there's also the reveal of the person that's there is Mike the security guard, but it's not just Michael, it's Michael Afton, the son of William Afton.
Yeah, the brother of the cop lady.
Which, I mean, to be fair, it makes sense lore-wise that, the son would be the security guard of the original location, but I feel like him just arriving there, like, I've known what's going on all along.
Right, yeah, it sort of comes out of left field, because he's just introduced when he kills those guys, and then has not mentioned at all until this point.
And so then it's not until, like, the original animatronics come in to where he's like, okay, I'm leaving, and then of course Mike's best friend clotheslines him immediately,
which I love, because he seems to not be around for any of the context. But just sees a guy riding out of their house, and he's like, all right, my time to shine.
He saw the Five Nights at Freddy's bed.
This guy looks creepy. I'm gonna clothesline him.
Yeah, just clothesline him and do that. So it's like all of the conflict seems to be resolved in the moment. And so then they're getting ready to leave, except Mike turns back to Vanessa and says, get the hell out of my life. I don't want you here. And that's like, wild. Where did that come from?
And then he leaves her in his own home. He's like, get the hell out of my life. I'm going to leave my house now.
It was so wild and so out of character. Like, because
they just railroaded that plot device specifically.
Because
so
it's like, no, we need to end with you sad in order to make this plot working towards
get possessed by the marionette.
Yes, which, like, I felt like her getting possessed by the marionette is actually like a good story device. Yes. I liked that.
They just set it up shittily.
The sorrow aspect. I think it would have been better. And this is me playing director. This is actually me having a good idea of maybe her feeling extreme guilt about everything that happened, and
That
she
would've been
pushes
better.
herself away.
Yes, she said yes.
And then maybe she like goes to the bathroom and cries, and then that's whenever you maybe see the marionettes slink over, possess her, and then like Mike's like, "Hey Vanessa, I'm sorry," and goes, and like she's gone,
yeah.
and leaves.
That
And
would make more sense too, because she's already avoidant of her traumatic conflict or whatever. So
Yeah.
that would be falling back into that character device that they've set.
I
for
felt
her.
like that would have been a better device. The only reason why I could even presume they would write it the way they did is the fact that they just don't want him looking for her. That's about the only
I feel like they were just trying to
aspect.
hit a runtime, and they were like, "All right, get him the fuck out of the house," and her possessed
that
somehow. in the same
that was
scene.
another scene that I'm like, okay, that actually kind of pissed me off with how bad that was.
Yeah.
Like there's like no
like
like
I don't understand how you like. Maybe you feel that way after the smoke clears, but like you are literally all just trying to be killed by the same villain. Isn't there some sort of trauma bond there? Why wouldn't you trust this woman who's putting her life on the line for you and your family? And he's like, I just don't trust you because you didn't tell me something.
it was just frustrating. I'm like, okay, this is just bad writing. This is just not good at all whatsoever. So I was not a fan of that, but I did like the ending. I do like the fact that it feels like Vanessa is losing to her trauma, and again,
I
she's
think
pretty
it's
much
setting up. It's a good setup for the next movie.
Yes.
but I didn't like the ending. If that makes sense.
very much so.
Yeah.
And of course, like, Michael, the security guard, is gone because all you see is his badge on the ground, pulls up Michael Myers. So, of course, have him there. And I did like how the film ended. And of course, they're playing another Living in Tombstone, Since You've Been Gone, which was their follow-up song in the Five Nights at Freddy's song Devotion. It's not quite as big of a bop as Five Nights at Freddy's, but it was still a good bop, and I'm like, okay, makes sense. They do have a good mid-credit sequence where it shows the guys breaking in. They're like, they're going to tear this place down. We need to take everything we can for our haunted house attraction, which is where the third game takes place.
Okay, that
They
makes
create
sense.
a haunted attraction themed around Five Nights at Freddy's, and they're taking stuff. And most notably, the third game is where they actually introduced Springtrap. Springtrap was not like presented like before. Then they kind of gave hints about Purple Guy, as you famously heard, or Yellow Rabbit. But this was like the first time Springtrap was introduced, which is what I kind of like about the films doing it. Like, I felt like them introducing Springtrap, William Afton, in the first film, I'm like, that was good. That was a good pivot, trying to do that. And again, I felt like with this film, they did a good job of including elements of the second game while also kind of progressing the story and clearly setting up things for the third one. And it was a good shot, I will say, kind of like, okay, let's grab this animatronic. We can work with this. Can't believe we found a working animatronic because it was in a hidden room. And of course, you see like the light flickering in the eye, and there's like no jump scare. And I don't think you needed it to move. I think the fact that I always come back, and everything. I felt like that's a good end credits, mid credits technically sequence, because technically the end credits is Henry Emily recording a message saying like, "Hey, Mike, this is for you. If something happens for me," which who knows what happens, whether it's Springtrap or Charlotte coming after him or somebody. I felt like it was pretty good in sequence. I definitely,
Yeah, I like that sort of revealed who his character was too, because it also makes it like
it just confirmed who his character was, especially there.
And the two Scream boys are more business partners once again.
So yeah, I'll be curious to see if I assume Skeet Ulrich will appear in the next one,
In some
presumably,
capacity,
especially if they're investing that much into him. Like, hey, who's a good character for this to appear? Because Henry Emily is big into the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, building wise. So yeah, so overall, I will say the whole idea of the film being kind of sort of the downfall of Vanessa Apton, losing her battle with this traumatic experience and kind of just doubling down to being like, you're right, I'm not worthy of this. I need to go back to family, and just sort of, especially, it's not even her own presumption, but just being susceptible to being possessed by Charlotte. I'm like, it makes me excited about where they could take this film from here. So I think at the very least, the film entertained me. I enjoyed it. There are things that are objectively not great about it, and in some areas that were just like, that's just bad. But there's also a lot of great moments, I would say. So
I agree with that.
Aside from that, Bubby, anything else you want to add about Five Nights at Freddy's 2?
No.
Okay. All right. So, teasers for the next episode. Yeah. So this one is going to be very interesting because I thought very much a long time about this and everything, because our next episode is our 100th episode of the podcast. Whoa. So I was thinking to myself, like, is there a film that's like indicative of, like, 100 and everything? And one thing that I've thought about, because we've been doing this podcast for over 4 years, is just kind of talking about some landmark locations we've visited and everything. So I think for this next episode, if you'll allow me to do so, otherwise I could just pull a recommendation out of the hat. I think it would be interesting for the next episode if we maybe talked about maybe some of our favorite films we've watched on this podcast, be it critically acclaimed or personally it just resonated with you. Maybe do something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm glad you're on board. I felt like it's good because I know we always have retrospectives on the anniversary talking about like, oh, how's it been with horror? But I think it's more important that we look specifically at exact examples of it and just kind of talk about it, because I do think favorites do kind of show insight into what we appreciate and like about the horror genre as a whole.
What shapes us and our insights into horror? What we like about horror,
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. We'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with our top 5 horror films.
Woo! I'm doing a list episode.
Whoa, we're doing it! Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.